Hello, it's your Drayson, Amethyst Joey, and today we got another story, another true story. It was a nice afternoon. It was this little girl. She was going with her mom and her dad. They were walking along the street, along the sidewalk, and they found this toy store. They got a teddy bear. The girl was about 4 years old. They got this teddy bear. It's like a normal teddy bear. It's like brown fur and all that. And they went home, and it became her favorite toy. Then a few years later, one day they went to a park, and then the little girl kind of just like left the teddy bear on the swings when they were swinging on it, and then she kind of forgot to bring the teddy bear back home with her, and she didn't know this until after she got out the car when they were already home in the driveway. So yeah, she left her teddy bear at the park on the kids' playground. So later that night, the little girl, her name was Red Rover. She was sleeping in her bed in her dark bedroom. There was maybe a little bit of light coming in through, a little tiny bit of moonlight coming in through a single window, but the curtains were down, so there was barely any light in there, but it wasn't pitch black or anything. No. So, she had a bunch of toys laying around, and she forgot to clean up and stuff like that, including a toy telephone. It was like a red toy, like, rotary telephone. It was a toy one. It was in the corner of her room, and she was just trying to get some shut-eye. And it was about to be 12 a.m. And 12 a.m. came. It read on her digital clock, it read in red numbers, 12:00. And then there was a telephone ringing sound. Bling, bling, bling. And it woke the girl up. It woke Red Rover up, and then she was startled by it. And she, like, gasped. She was looking around, and then she was wondering where that, like, phone sound was coming from, because she didn't have a phone in her room. She wasn't old enough to have one. She was probably about 6 years old here. When she first got that teddy bear, it was like she was 4 years old, but now she's 6 years old here. So she woke up from the telephone ringing sound, and then that's when she looked to her left slightly off of her bed, and she noticed the ringing was coming from her toy telephone. There was no plug into the wall or anything. It was a toy plastic telephone that shouldn't be able to work, but it was ringing. It was really ringing. So she carefully got out of her bed. She undid her covers. She was crawling out of her bed, maybe nearly tripped on the ground as she was trying to get out of bed. And then it started ringing again. Ring, 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 ring. And it made her freak out, so she just kind of stood still for a second. But then she stepped over her toys, her Legos, all that stuff, her toy cars, her Barbie dolls, and then she crouched down to the toy telephone. Ring, ring, ring. And then she reached down and picked up the like red telephone, the part that you hold. And she held it up to her ear. And then there was a little bit of static. Kind of like a radio. And then she could just barely hear a voice through the other side of the phone in this childlike voice. It said, like, she had it up to her ear, it was making a faint cursing noise. And what followed was a voice that said, Red Rover, I'm 1 mile away from your house. And then it cut off. It went back to static. The little girl was freaked out. Red Rover was freaked out about what she just heard. And she almost didn't believe it. She backed up from her phone a little bit. She removed it from her ear, and she just kind of looked at the phone in shock. And then set it back down on the plastic rotary part of the toy phone. So then, she went back to sleep. She crawled back into bed, tried to forget about it, and fell back asleep. Ring, ring, ring! It immediately woke her up. She was in shock. She didn't know what to think. She was just startled awake suddenly from the ringing sound. She looked at her clock. It was 1 a.m. Ring, ring, ring! She got out of her bed. She took off the covers. She carefully navigated across the carpeted floor, over to the far corner of her room, where the red toy telephone rang. Ring, ring, ring! So she grabbed it. She grabbed the top part of the toy telephone again, carefully, slowly back up to her ear. Red Rover, Red Rover, I'm right outside your house. And she was freaked out. She didn't know what to think. She was just standing there in shock. She removed the phone from her ear. She stared at the toy telephone that she was holding, then set it back on top of the rotary part of the toy telephone. And then she went back to sleep. She crawled back in her bed and fell back asleep. Ring, 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 ring! She jolted awake. Red Rover looked around the room and then heard the ringing. Ring, 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 ring! It seemed to be louder, more aggressive, more extreme of a ringing, just a little bit. But it could have been imagination. It just could have been her imagination that ring, ring, ring sound was a little bit louder than it should have been. She looked to her right on her bedside table, saw the clock, and it read 2 a.m. She carefully got out of the bed. She undid her covers. She carefully walked across the carpeted floor, dodging the toys, avoiding them. And then she reached to her phone, her toy telephone. Ring, ring, ring! She grabbed it, carefully put it up to her ear. Red Rover, Red Rover, I'm in the kitchen grabbing a knife. She was freaked out. She didn't know what to think. Red Rover looked at her phone, then set it back on the rest of the toy telephone. And then she went back to sleep. She crawled back into her bed and went back to sleep. Ring, 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 ring. She woke up. She jolted up and awake. Red Rover looked at the phone. Ring, 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 ring. This was becoming too scary for her. She didn't know she wanted to pick up the phone this time. But at the same time, she could be in danger. If she didn't pick up the phone, she wouldn't know. She looked at her digital clock, and it read 3 a.m. She got out of her bed. She walked across the floor of her room, went up to her toy telephone, picked it up, slowly put it up to her ear. Red Rover, Red Rover, I'm climbing up the stairs. She put the phone back down and then went back to sleep. She crawled back into her bed and fell back asleep. Ring, 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 ring. Red Rover got out of her bed, walked over to her toy telephone. Ring, 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 ring. She reached out for a toy telephone. grabbed it, slowly put it up to her ear. And while she was waiting for what was to be said next, she turned to look back. Her digital alarm clock. It read 4 a.m. And then the voice could be heard through the other side of the phone. Red Rover, Red Rover, your family is gone. And then Red Rover went back to her bed. She laid there. She tried to sleep, but couldn't. She hid under the covers in panic. She didn't know how long it has been. She'd been under there for what felt like an hour. Ring, 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 ring. She was not going to answer it. Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring. And then it was suddenly silenced. She looked around her room, her dark, quiet room. She looked at her digital clock. It was 5 a.m. And that's when Red Rover felt something to her left. She slowly turned her head while laying in bed to her left to look at the left side of her pillow. Her teddy bear was staring at her, right in her face. Just frozen and staring at her. As if it had been there the whole time, like any normal teddy bear would. But its dead glare at her made it too obvious. Something was wrong. And that's when Red Rover glanced her eyes just under the blankets. She looked at the surface of the blankets and she saw a shark-like fin under it. There was a sharp object under the covers. The bear kept staring at her when she looked back at it. And that's when Red Rover, looking very, very closely, she could just about make out the details of the teddy bear's mouth just barely splitting open. Just a barely noticeable amount. Its face was shifting like any other animal with any expression that would be alive. And then let's on her face! She tried to get the bear off. It was on her face. It had the knife up. It was stabbing her in the face. It was gouging her eyes out and everything. There was blood everywhere! And that's how Red Rover ceased to exist.